Well, happy Tuesday. I hope your week has started off well. Today we are covering chronic negativism. And I want to just jump right in. Again, we are still reading from Coming Home to Self by Nancy Newton Verrier. Take everything with a grain of salt. She is a psychologist and an adoptive parent. And always, I am not the one and only adoptee, right? There are many other people out there who tell their stories, so also keep that in mind. Take my word for a grain of salt as well. But I am just reading and giving commentary here, so welcome in. Okay. Stop believing the negative is realistic and positive is pie in the sky. Be honest about your general mood. Daniel Siegel defines mood as the, quote, the general tone of emotions across time, whereas Lewis et al. Define mood as, quote, a state of enhanced readiness to experience a certain emotion, unquote. Although somewhat different, each definition explains that the rut many people are in when it comes to the way that they see the world. For example, many people insist on interpreting everything that has happened to them as proof that they are a failure. They begin to recount the many times that they have failed in the past and look upon the future with dismay. Kind of like people that think that everything is a sign, right? I'm trying to think like, oh, if you're driving down the road and all of a sudden you see stop, the highway is closed or something, that, oh, this is a sign that the door is closed, the next road, that kind of thing. I have mixed feelings about it. There's definitely been times I've done that. But is it everything? No, you're not going to walk down and think like, oh, I see yellow flowers and that means, that must mean, the sun is going to come down and get me, right? Like, sorry, I'm just being a little dramatic on that one. I don't think that, right? So like, there's also, oh God, what was that book? I'm sure you guys remember. You can put it in the comments. It was really popular, where it basically said, like, what you put out in the world is what you get back. So if you put out positive energy, you're going to get positive energy back, and that, good things are going to come to you versus bad. If you put out bad energy, more bad things are going to happen to you, right? It's kind of like I drive down the road, and I notice there's more certain cars, right? Certain brand of cars, because that's the brand I drive. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's not always that way. Does that make sense? Like, it's just a different perspective of the way that you're looking at things. Anyway, sorry, I went off there. Siegel says, quote, the influence of mood upon all of these cognitive functions reveals how general emotional tone reinforces itself in a feedback loop that keeps one's mood spiraling in the same direction. This may explain the tenacious nature of emotional disturbances such as depression or chronic anxiety, in which given mood becomes a relative fixed and disabling state, unquote. If you find yourself always focusing on the negative about yourself or your circumstances, force yourself to find something positive to think about. Train your mind. Positive thoughts create a positive chemical reaction in your body. Positive thoughts are good for you. Don't be afraid of them. So kind of like what I said about that book. I can't think. I can, like, was it The Secret? I think that was the book. Anyway, that was kind of like the premise of it, right? The same thing, like, focus on the good and the good will come back to you. Yeah. You can't count on your feelings to be a true state of things. As Britton says, quote, our feelings lie. I'm talking about the feelings that are derived from fear-based thinking. And sad to say that that's most of our feelings. Yet the majority of people believe their fear-based feelings define who they are. They do not. Feelings move through you in the same way that a head cold or a thought does. Feelings do not sum up who you are, unquote. How do you begin to get beyond the control your feelings have in running your life? Britton says to remember that there are 4 A's. Acknowledge you are having feelings. Allow yourself time to process those feelings. Ask yourself, what am I committed to? And then act upon your commitments. These are important points to remember because overwhelming feelings can make it difficult to adopt these to make choices and decisions. Okay, so the next part we're going to go into the decision making. But just remember that circumstances can change, and I know sometimes a lot of us feel like we're in a rut, right? Like we feel like nothing's going right, or we're just kind of stuck in this complacency. And how do we get out of this, right? So my thought is, all right, let's take a moment and let's mind map, right? What do we want to accomplish and when? Let's make those SMART goals, like SMART. If you haven't heard of it, please go look it up. I'm not going to explain it right now. But let's make up those SMART goals and let's make a vision board. Put it somewhere where you see it every day. And if you really have to change your mind into thinking better about yourself, one thing that I have considered doing myself is writing on post-it notes, right? Little quotes or little positive things about myself and putting it where you can see it. So it might be on the fridge. It might be in the mirror, right, in the bathroom. It might be by my bed, right? It might be at my desk. Just little things so that when I look, it's just a small reminder. And you could do it like one a week, right? If that's what you need to do. Or you can make it your mantra for the day, right? Or your mantra for the week, right? Just keep repeating it to yourself. And as you continue to do that, it will help, right? Now, that's not to say we don't have flaws. That's not to say that's going to stop all the negative thoughts, right? All of our feelings are valid, but how do we move past fear is what they're saying, so that it's not stopping you. It's not affecting your life to the point where you can't be doing things, right? The way that anxiety sometimes does. And I want to note that a lot of us have anxiety and don't always recognize it. You know, looking back when I was a kid, did I have anxiety? Yes. Sorry, I'm laughing because it was ridiculously obvious now looking back. Did my parents and everyone else miss that anxiety? Yes. Was it normal for me to feel that way? Also, yes, right? Now, it's not normal for everyone, but that was my normal. Just like adoption is my normal. But how do we get past that? How do we make it so that that anxiety doesn't stop us from living our life? One thing I've personally done right now as an adult is I take anxiety medication. I also see a therapist. I find that it truly does help, right? I also know the symptoms and I can recognize it and I see it in my child. And so when I talk to him, if he's like, my stomach hurts, buddy, are you anxious? Is there something that's bothering you? Or are you sick, right? I go through this because I know the difference. And I think that helps because sometimes it truly is anxiety. Now, he is a preteen. So we're getting, gosh, I'm getting older as a parent, right? But, for him, he does have anxiety medication as well. His is as needed. Mine, I need every day because mine also doubles for my chronic illness. So keep that in mind. But his is as needed. And so if he knows that he's going to go into a situation where his anxiety is going to rank up really fast, right? So for example, going to the dentist, it's a time where I tell him, buddy, you really have to take your medicine. Let's take this. You're going to feel a lot better during the situation, right? And that's what he does, and it helps. But does that mean that there aren't other coping mechanisms that we haven't worked on? Of course not. Is it stopping our lives? No. Now, are we lucky in that? Of course, right? Because we're looking for healthy coping mechanisms, right? So like I was saying, therapy is great. Exercise. We love animals. Animals are great therapy. It's great as having animals are. They can be very, they can be a lot of work. But, if you cannot take care of an animal for yourself, or for whatever reason can't have a pet, go volunteer at an animal shelter. Go to Petco and just watch the fish. Get a fish app. There's so many ways that you can cope with while using various tools that are inexpensive or free, right? And yes, I do recommend therapy. I also realize that not everyone can access, let alone afford therapy, right? So if you're having trouble in that, please let me know, and I will try to help you find resources for that. I do recommend therapy, but is talk therapy the only type of therapy out there? No, there's equine therapy, so working with horses. There's art therapy. There's, obviously we have speech therapy, occupational PT, which is physical therapy, but there's all sorts of techniques that could help you. And, it may not be for you. It may be that one person you don't vibe with, and that's okay too, right? We're not going to vibe with everyone in the world, right? So when you're seeking a therapist, remember that if you're going for adoption issues, I recommend finding someone that understands those adoption issues, right? Someone that is adoption competent, someone that understands that. So an adoptive parent probably will not be your best bet in terms of adoption, right? But someone who is maybe a fellow adoptee or has taken those extra classes might be a little bit more understanding in that, right? Just throwing that out there. So, sometimes you have to feel for it. If you're going for, say you are LGBTQ, find a therapist that is also LGBTQ or works with those, issues related to. Because, a therapist that deals with, children, right, and familial abuse or issues is not going to necessarily understand everything about, say, adoption or LGBTQ or being Indigenous or Black or Pacific Islander. You get what I'm saying? It's not always... They're not trained in that way. There's specialties, just like doctors have specialties. So keep that in mind. Hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.